Alright, on problem number 1, you need to move this 5 over to the other side, and then after you do that, you square both sides to get rid of the square root, and then it becomes x plus 4 equals 25. Then you subtract the 4 over, getting x equals 21, and that's the answer. And then, focus. On number 2, the 2/3 power you change into the cubed root, and then you put the square over on this side, and then you square both sides to get rid of this square, and then it becomes the cube root of x plus 10 equals plus or minus 3, because the plus or minus goes there because that was square rooted. And then you need to cube both sides, which makes this plus or minus 27, and then cubing this side gets rid of the cubed root, and then you subtract the 10 to both positive 27 and negative 27, and it gives you 17 and negative 37. And then here you check for extraneous solutions, plugging both of these in, and neither of them were extraneous, so the final answer is 17 and negative 37. Question number 3. First thing you want to do is square both sides to get rid of this square root, and once you do that, you get 25x squared equals 15 plus 10x, because you got rid of this square root. And then I simplified by dividing by 5, and that gives you 5x squared minus 2x minus 3. And then you can turn that, you plug this into the quadratic formula, and it gives you 2 plus or minus 8 over 10. And then if you do 2 plus 8 is 10 over 10, which is 1. And then 2 minus 8 is negative 6 over 10, which equals negative 3/5. And if you plug in the negative 3/5, it is extraneous, and if you plug in the 1, it isn't. So the final answer is x equals 1, and extraneous solution is negative 3/5. Question number 4, you need to plug in f of x and g of x to this problem. So first thing you do for f of x is you multiply it by negative 2, which gives you negative 10x squared plus 6x minus 14. And then if you multiply g of x times 4, you get negative 24x minus 28. Once you combine these, you get negative 10x squared minus 18x minus 42. So the final answer is negative 2 f of x plus 4g of x equals 10x squared minus 18x minus 42. Question number 5. You also plug in f of x and g of x, but this time you're dividing. And f of x can actually be factored, so you put the factored form on top, and g of x you put on bottom, and g of x can cancel out both these x's plus 2, so then f over g equals 3x plus 5. And the domain is negative infinity 2 union 2 infinity, because if you plug in 2 minus 2 is 0, and you can't have a 0 as a denominator, so that's why that is the domain. Number 6a, the function for the 25% discount is x minus 0.25x, and because you take the total cost minus the 25% off of the total cost, so you subtract that discount from the total cost. B, the c of x for the $20 off is just x minus 20, the total cost with the discount. And C, explain what both dc of x and cd of x mean. So dc of x represents the cost when you take the $20 off first, and then you multiply to get the 25% discount. And cd of x is when you take the 25% discount first, and then you subtract the $20 off from the total cost minus the discount. And 6D, first thing you do is you plug in 950 for both, and 950 minus 20 is 930, and then you take the 25% discount of 930, which is 232.50. So 950 minus that is 717.50. So that's the total cost when you do the $20 off first. When you do the 25% discount first, you get 950 times the 25% discount is 237.5, and then you add the $20 to that discount, and that gives you 257.50. And 950 minus 257.50 is 692.50. So CD of x will make it cheaper, which means taking the 25% discount off first is the better of both scenarios. All right, and the no calculator section. The first one is 2 square root x plus 7. So you have to solve it algebraically. So when you switch the x and y here, you get y equals x squared minus 49 over 4. And then in order to graph it, you have to do this first. You try to make each one, you got to try to make it 0, 1, then 4, then 9. So you plug in the 0 here, add the 7, you get 7, plug in 1, 2 plus 7 is 9, plug in the 4, square root of 4 is 2, 2 times 2 is 4, plus 7 is 11, then you plug in the 9, square root of 9 is 3, times 2 is 6, plus 7 is 13, and then to get the inverse, the f of x minus 1, you just flip both sides. And once you get that, then you graph it, and this is the graph of both of those functions here, and you can see that both of them are functions because neither of them cross the same x twice. So yes, the inverse is a function, and it's because there are no two x values that are the same. Number 8, graph negative 3x squared plus 2 and its inverse. So first thing you do is you try to get 0, 1, negative 1, or you try to get 0 and 1 and negative 1, and then you try to get 4 and negative 4 because it's a quadratic, so you do it on both sides. So you plug in the 0, the 1, the negative 1, the 2, and the negative 2. Because it's a quadratic, you have to get it on both sides. So when you plug in the 0, it's 0 plus 2 is 2. Plug in the 1, 1 squared is 1 times negative 3 is negative 3, plus 2 is negative 1. Negative 1 squared is also 1 times negative 3 is negative 3, plus 2 is negative 1. 2 squared is 4 times negative 3 is negative 12, plus 2 is negative 10. Negative 2 squared is 4 times negative 3 is 12, plus 2 is negative 10. And then to get the inverse, you just flip both sides. And once you plug that in, you get both of these quadratics. And you can see they're both inverse too. And then the range, the domain and range of f of x is negative infinity to infinity, and the range is negative infinity to 2. And then the inverse, you just flip-flop these. So since the range of f of x is negative infinity to 2, the domain is going to be negative infinity to 2. And the range is negative infinity to negative infinity because the domain of f of x was negative infinity to negative infinity. Number 9, graph y equals -2 square root x plus 3 plus 5. First thing I did was I tried to get 0. I tried to get under there to equal 0, under the radical to equal 0, 1, 4, and 9. So -3 plus 3 is 0. -2 times 0 is 0 plus 5 is 5. -2 plus 3 is 1. Square root of 1 is 1 times -2 is -2. Plus 3, or plus 5 is 3. Plug in the 1 to get 4. 1 plus 4 is, or 1 plus 3 is 4. Square root of 4 is 2. -2 times 2 is -4, plus 5 is 1. 6, plug in the 6. 6 plus 3 is 9. Square root of 9 is 3. 3 times -2 is -6, plus 5 is -1. And plug that into the graph, you get this curve right here. And the transformations of that are left 3, up 5, and it is a vertical stretch and a reflection. So you can see it's stretched and then it reflects upside down. Instead of going this way, it goes under. And number 10, graph the cube root of x minus 2 minus 3. Since it's a cube root, you need to find the negatives as well as the positives. So you plug in to try to get 0, 1, and -1, and 8, and -8. So plug in. I always do the zeros first, then the 1 and -1 up, and then the 8 and -8. So I plugged in the 2 minus 2 is 0. Cube root of 0 is 0 minus 3 is -3. Then I plug in for 1. 3 minus 2 is 1. Cube root of 1 is 1. Minus 3 is -2. And then the -1. 1 minus 2 is -1. Cube root of -1 is -1. Minus 3 is -4. And then plug in the 8. 10 minus 2 is 8. Cube root of 8 is 2. Minus 3 is -1. And then plug in for -8. -6 minus 2 is -8. Cube root of -8 is -2. Minus 3 is -5. And that plugged into the graph gives you this S curve here. And that has a transformation of right 2 here from this vertex, right 2 and down 3. And the domain and range is -infinity to +infinity.